Hi, can I go on now? Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Fireside Chat, and we hope this will be a very informative and useful session for you. Today, we're very happy to have Dr. Kenneth Lyen. He's a renowned pediatrician and endocrinologist in Singapore, but he also has a very interesting life journey to share with you. He was born and raised in Singapore. He went to Oxford for medical school and did some of his training in London and also at the Philadelphia Children's Hospital. And he's come back here, and in addition to being a pediatrician and endocrinologist, he has also founded the Rainbow Center, which really was a pioneering work, because prior to that time, there were really no special institutions for children with autism or other mental handicaps. So that was really quite a new concept. And we fortunately over the years have more institutions for students with autism. And I think the government, as well as the medical community and the general community at large, has been much more aware of the needs of children with mental handicaps. And then in addition to all these contributions in the medical realm, Dr. Lyen has also been a very successful musical writer. In fact, that's the first time I met him, was I attended one of his musicals. And since then, which was about 11 years ago, I invited him to come to Shears, and usually once every year or so, he will share some of his experiences either with the college or the first year students at large. And so he's actually what we call a friend of Shears College. And so we've always appreciated his words of wisdom. So today I would like to invite him to talk about how to get the right work-life balance in the medical profession. So thank you very much, Dr. Lyen, for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to Shears College to talk. Professor Paul Yan, Dr. Mara McAdams, Yusuf and Prashad, and all of you. Thank you so much for inviting me. Today, can I put on my slides?
Yes, please.
How do I?
You can click on share screen and
then the bottom right. Share. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep, all good.
So I was invited to talk about my life's journey through undergraduate, postgraduate, and working life, and then family and other things. So I decided to title it "Work Hard, Play Hard." This was an advice given to me by my professor when I was at university. So work hard, play hard, and that's exactly what I would like to convey to you. So how do I change my slide? You can use your keyboard. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is the way that you are now having the white coat ceremony. In the past, you were physically there, and I guess nowadays it's done by Zoom. So congratulations to all the newcomers who are in this class of 2025. It's a great privilege, if you haven't realized it, to be in the medical school and in the medical profession. It's very difficult to get in, and if you got in, I think we deserve to pay back to those that we owe success. So this is something that I hope to be able to convey to you. And so the Duke-NUS medical students are very well known to be very hardworking. Probably the hardest working of all the 3 medical schools in Singapore. Duke-NUS has been always acknowledged as the most hardworking. But you're also the most hard playing. So you play hard. And in fact, when I was invited by Professor Kenneth Lyen, who you see at the bottom left corner, and Professor Paul Yan, they were starting a World Autism Awareness Day as part of the WHO World Autism Awareness. And Duke-NUS was actually instrumental in starting this, and they did a lot of work. They did workshops, exhibitions, and many events, and it was a huge success. So today I'm going to talk about work-life balance. We have to try to incorporate everything. We need to be able to work hard, study hard, but we also need to have a life of our own. And so these are the three traditional parts of the triangle. You work hard to get good grades, you have a social life, and you must also sleep. But in reality, we actually have many more other additional elements. You need to work hard to get good grades, but you need to work and have relationships and do research. I'm a great believer that we have to do research even during our university undergraduate days. And now people have added more and more things, like you have to put your love life and have dating, extracurricular activities, food, of course, hobbies, sleep, homework, family life, and work, and then class. So what are the advice? These are some of the advice that I was given over the years. We've modified it a little bit. And of course, we are different. What I recommend is very different from each one of you. We are all different. We're all individuals, and we have our own methods of studying and working. So nowadays, I used to use pen and paper to write my calendar, but now you can use a Google Calendar, which I think is a very excellent way of planning your day. But I think the Google Calendar may also be a little bit too complicated for a person like me. So I still use the old-fashioned pen and paper. A to-do list is also important. It's slightly different from the Google Calendar. I'll explain in a minute. You study for a certain amount of time. There's now a Pomodoro and other programs. So you study, say, 25 minutes and take a break for 5 minutes. Read and get motivational, because you need to be self-motivated for medicine. Medicine is not an easy task, and you do need to be able to drive yourself. And also be aware of your feelings. If you're low and exhausted, have a rest, discuss it with friends, take exercise. So this is a timetable. I don't use such a detailed timetable, but just to give you an idea what some of my obsessional colleagues are doing, they have this sort of timetable. The to-do list would be things like planning, do your shopping and do your haircut or whatever you have to do. And then reading of books to help self-reflect and rejuvenate your mind. And study hard, study until you really know everything. But make time for socializing. Food is a good way to socialize. Now we allow 5 people. 5 people can join up. And sports, exercise. Exercise to me is absolutely important, and I undertook exercises at least twice a week, 3 times a week during the undergraduate days. And relaxation. Dr. Xiao was just graduated from medical school, and he's a very well-known performer. I understand there are some in Duke as well, and I just can't remember the names, but I watched them perform. They're very good. And of course, your love life. Love life is also an important, and this is also when I share my own personal experiences. This is also where university was where I found my love and my future wife. Sleep is absolutely important. You need to get 6 to 8 hours sleep. But nowadays, what I found was if I had my handphone too close, someone would page me or wake me up using the handphone. So now I try to keep it further and further away. Social media, yes, I'm not saying you can't go in. In fact, we all do social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, WhatsApp, and YouTube, but be a bit careful. Don't overdo it. And especially with TikTok and Netflix, and even the old-fashioned TV, we have to balance our life, but don't overdo it. And we have to be very strict in this. And addictive video games, I do know of some of my students who spend too much time, and it does affect their schoolwork. So this is my personal journey. So I was in Singapore, and then I very luckily got into Oxford University, where I met many famous people. There includes Sir Hans Krebs of the Krebs cycle was my teacher. Rodney Porter, he's the immunoglobulin, IgG, IgA, IgM, IgE, Ig. Oh, he was the one who discovered all these things. Ernst Chain was also my teacher, and he won a Nobel Prize for the discovery of penicillin together with Alexander Fleming. And then Dorothy Hodgkins, who did the structure of insulin and vitamin B12. Nicholas Tinbergen was another Nobel Prize winner. All these are Nobel Prize winners, and they were very inspiring. So it's a fantastic place to be in those days. And even nowadays, there's still a lot of excellent people, excellent teachers. I was really inspired by them. Then I came down to University College London at the Middlesex Hospital. This is where I dated my girlfriend and who became my future wife. So this was very important. I wanted to become a cardiologist, but the first day I was asked to do a coronary angiography. I couldn't get it in. I tried, I couldn't get it in. So I made up my mind, I won't be a cardiologist. Things that you think you want to do in life, you may in reality decide to do something totally different. So I changed to pediatrics. So I enrolled for at this hospital at Great Ormond Street. I spent 18 months there, and I learned a lot, and I was very inspired by all the people there. And so I became a pediatrician. Then I furthered my training in America. I went to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. I got a research fellowship there. I spent 3 years. I published a lot of papers, and I enjoyed myself. I think American institutions like Duke and like Philadelphia are absolutely wonderful places, friendly, encouraging. I learned so much. They're really excellent places. So if you have a chance to go to America, please do. I became a researcher, so I published papers, worked in the lab, and then I was headhunted. The vice chancellor of University of Singapore, Lim Pin, Professor Lim Pin, headhunted me, and he asked me to come back. So I came back to the National University of Singapore, and I stayed there for many years, and then finally, because of some friction with the boss, a new boss, young guy. 11 of us left. So eventually we decided, okay, we'll come out and start our own private practice. So that's what happened to me. So these are some of the papers and original articles I published. These are the out of office, out of clinical practice life. There are 4 quadrants I did. I did social service, which is in the top left-hand corner. I continued writing. I write articles, I write books, I compose music, and then I play tennis. So this is the Rainbow Center, which I started. The reason I started, because when I came back to Singapore, I discovered that there was nothing for the young children under the age of 7. So I said, okay, we must do something. So I volunteered, and I started the Margaret Drive was the first school. And then we had 2 more schools. So now we run 3 schools under the umbrella of the Rainbow Center for disadvantaged children who are either intellectually or physically disabled and the autistic children. So it grew from just a handful of less than 10 children to now almost 1,000. So we have grown. We also helped start another school called the Pathlight School. So we've been involved throughout the past decades, building up more and more schools, and we now involve even the community centers. So these are some of the books I've published. I enjoy writing, and I would encourage all of you to write and write and write. It's very important. And these are some of the books I've written. The middle one is the most recent one I just finished writing. And these are the musicals. I've composed over 30 musicals. That means over 200 songs. And we've had them, all of these are staged in Singapore. And these are two of my favorite musicals, The Magic Paintbrush and Jungle Adventures. I also play tennis every week. This was 3 days ago. I play just every Sunday, and this is the latest one, 3 days ago. So that's my life. But I also want to quickly tell you about some of my colleagues. These are some of my friends. Francis Xiao Chen, he was lucky during his national service. He was sent to Brunei, and he saw these stick insects, these gigantic insects, and he wrote one book. I thought he only wrote 2 books. Actually, he wrote 10 books on stick insects. Then my other friend is Dr. Ho Ki Hang, who's started watercolor painting seriously when he got into medical school. And he became better and better and better. And now he's got hundreds of paintings, beautiful, beautiful paintings. Other doctors like Dr. Stephanie Yip is a singer-songwriter. Dr. George and Jennifer Wong, who are my neighbors upstairs, they do ballroom dancing. Dr. Chan Tao Liang, who I also know is a regular reviewer for the Straits Times in classical music. Dr. Leslie Tay, if you're a food fanatic, he posts online called I Eat, I Shoot, I Post. And then Roshni Pillay is a ethnic dancer. So these are some of the people who I know. And over the years, I've taught many people. I've taught, I don't know if you know, Professor To Han Chong, who is also with the Duke-NUS. He was also my student. And here's another of my student, probably my most famous student, Dr. Vivian Balakrishnan, who was an excellent debater. He was a fantastic, I would sort of discuss things with him, and he was fantastic. He was so intelligent, and what a wonderful debater. And he went into parliament, and now he's one of the ministers. So medical school is a marathon. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You just got to keep on going and going and going for decades and decades. You just keep on going. So you need to balance yourself, and each year it differs. So you need to balance your life. So I would congratulate your most recent graduates. They've been through the first phase of life is the medical school, and then you enter the real world. The real world is also equally challenging and also very rewarding, and you will change the world. Basically, that's your job, is to change the world. And so I'm going to stop here. I'd like to thank you, and then we'll have some discussions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lyen. Prashad, you want to take over?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lyen, for sharing, giving us some advice about how to achieve work-life balance from our early days as university students and through our career as future doctors. So for the audience members, you can either type in your questions in the chat or raise your hand on Zoom so that I can direct the opportunity to ask a question to you later on. But in the meanwhile, while everyone is formulating the questions, maybe, oh, okay, actually we already have a first asker of a question. Wharton, do you want to ask your question now?
How do I get to screen?
Sorry, I think we can't quite hear you. Is there an issue with your audio?
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Hi, Dr. Lyen. Thank you for the amazing
Hi.
talk. Lovely to hear about Teddy Hall. I'm from Pembroke, so it's great to hear about that.
Oh, wonderful.
Well, yeah. Actually, I wanted to ask a bit more about, since you're such an interdisciplinary person, and you write music, and you also have various hobbies. Do you think being a doctor brings a certain edge or niche into being an interdisciplinary practitioner in a way? I myself, I'm a jazz musician and swing dancer as well. So, I echo a lot of these sentiments.
Yes, indeed. We're almost forced into it because we have to understand our patients, and to if you can do what they do, enjoy what they enjoy, then you will understand them better. So things like arts and music, not only to be able to understand other people, but also for your own. When medicine is a very stressful life, I have to admit that, and you need to have some way of de-stressing. And I think art and music is one of the ways. Dance, sports, all these things will all help you de-stress. Community service only because when you are in a medical profession, people will ask you, can you please help them? Can you help the old? Can you help the young? Can you help the disadvantaged? Can you help the disabled? So you're going to be asked all the time to do that. And you can't say no all the time. So sooner or later, you have to say, okay, I'll help you. And so we are drawn into many areas of life. And you find it very rewarding and very you can change the world. You can really change people's lives.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lyen. Okay, maybe I'll get the next question going. So you mentioned about the various ways that we can try to achieve work-life balance, but in your own personal journey, how has achieving that balance been? Has it been pretty much like static? Like, do you always know from your university days that work-life balance was something important and should be sustained, or was that something that you came to a more slower realization over the years? Because I noticed that a lot
I think
of
a
your
mixture of
hobbies.
both. A mixture of both. I was already very interested in music, and in fact, I told my dad I'd like to be a musician, and he said, "Why don't you choose a profession that puts bread on your table?" And so my second choice was medicine, and he turned out to be correct, because if I was a musician, I would not succeed. I'm not that good. I would be starving. So music, but it doesn't mean that I don't do music. I still do music, but when you do it as a doctor, you'll enjoy it more because you don't depend on it. You don't have to please everybody. So the music I like, nobody likes nowadays. You know, they're very old-fashioned. It's now rap and hip hop and all these things, and I don't do any of those. I do the old-fashioned music. So yes, we sort of evolve. You know, we learn things as we go along. So initially, I wasn't very good. I was a procrastinator. I'm still a procrastinator, but after a while, you sort of learn how to get things done. You have to do it. You have to do it. You can't keep on putting it off. But you learn on the journey. It's a long journey, and you will learn during the trip.
So Joey has an extension of that question. So she thanked you for the inspiring talk, and she asks, at what point in your career do you start to manage to achieve this level of work-life balance, given that in the early years, there will be more hours spent in the hospital because of calls and less opportunity to spend on leisure?
Usually it's when you get into the more stable part of your life, when your clinic, your ward rounds and your research, sort of you got the timetables, and so then outside that area, that then you can decide to do other things. So I would sort of encourage you to make sure you do a bit of community service, a little bit of sports, and then a little bit of the arts or something related to that, if you can. Obviously, we're all different. Everyone is different.
So I was wondering, how long does it take for you to come up with the entire musical? Because I imagine juggling both work and that creative thought process must be quite difficult.
The fastest of me writing a musical is 1 week, but
Wow.
actually it takes about maybe over a month, at least a month. You have to be very fast, because in medicine, your life is governed by your clinics and your ward rounds and all these, and so you don't have that much time. So you've got to be very efficient. So for each musical, I write in an excess. So if I have, let's say, 10 songs for each musical. I write about 16. So 6 of the songs are throwaway because they're not quite suitable. So you write a little bit more than you actually need. So I think that's with life. We have more plans than we actually do. So when we set up schools, we actually have a lot more ideas. Some of the ideas we sort of realize don't work, so we throw them away. So I think the art of creativity is to have lots and lots of ideas. Same with my writing. When I write books, I write much more than I actually need. And then an editor comes along, or I edit my own books, and I throw away about 20, 30% of it. It's chopped off.
Okay. Shireen asks, what's your favorite musical?
When I was in London, I watched all these musicals like Les Miserables, Phantom of the Opera, quite a large number of musicals, and the Roald Dahl, Matilda. Those are musicals I really, really love, and I've bought the DVDs and I rewatched them again and again. But it's wonderful to watch them live, and I think it's a different thing to go to the actual theater and watch real human beings perform in front of you. And you also, sometimes they make mistakes, and you also, it's just that wonderful feeling. So I enjoy a lot of musicals, and even the Singapore musicals like Dick Lee's musicals, they're great fun to watch. And I really miss them because of COVID-19. We haven't been able to attend any of the musicals. So, but yes. I haven't watched some of the latest ones like Hamilton. I really want to watch these latest ones, but I have to travel. I have to go either to US or to UK to watch. Pity.
Have you had any sort of cross inspiration from these other musicals that you watched and incorporate into your own?
I guess we are all like that. Whenever we're artists, we always sort of get inspired or borrow little bits from here and there. Try not to be too plagiaristic. So we try to get inspiration from other people, other musicals. Yes.
Give any examples that you can share?
Well, when okay, so I wrote, for example, The Magic Paintbrush, but one of the songs was actually a modification of a very, very old 1920s musical. I can't remember the name, but if you listen to the musical, the rhythm, the pacing, and some of the words are very similar, although different, but they are similar to an inspired 1920s musical. So sometimes we do that to give variation to the music.
Okay, so I guess when ahead of the talk, when I first heard that you were going to be speaking, I just did a quick Google search about you, and one thing that I found aside from your musicals was your work that you've done on autism, and Prof. Lyen also talked about it in terms of you being a founder for Rainbow Center. So maybe I was wondering if you could share more about how you came into doing this work on autism and in pediatrics in Singapore, as well as I understand that you were a committee member in Minds before. So how did you get involved in all of these, and why do you see a need to be involved in these?
Yes, when I came back to Singapore, Professor Frida Paul was one of the heads of the departments in the pediatrics. And she asked if I would take over a clinic because she's going to retire the next year. And I said, well, okay, I'll take over. But I didn't realize she had actually offered a job to all the other pediatricians in our department, and none of them accepted. So I was just back and I didn't realize it. And so I took over a clinic, and I also didn't realize it was a huge clinic of over 1,000 students. They were all disabled. In those days, people looked down on disabilities. They did not consider them worth, it was in those days, you either want to nurture those who are going to be brilliant people, like the gifted educational. And so for the disabled and for the intellectually disabled, people looked down on them. But because I was educated overseas, I thought, no, these are part of our family. We have to regard whether you're very able and gifted or whether you're disabled, we're all part of the same family. So that's how I look at life. So I said, no, we have to do something for them. And there was nothing done for the under sevens. So when I joined MINDS, Movement for the Intellectually Disabled, they said, well, why don't we start something for the under sevens? So we did. We call it the Early Intervention Center. But MINDS at that time was full, so they didn't have space. So I was also in the community chess. So I asked the Dr. Yi Ping Liang, who is the head of the community chess, if he can help out to start an early intervention center. So he said, yes. Just go ahead and get started. But we had nowhere to have a place. Now it so happened that one of my friends from Oxford University, Dr. Tay Eng Soon, was also the Minister of Education. So I asked him, can you help me out? Give me a place so I can start a school. So he said, okay, there's this disused school that nobody's using at Margaret Drive. And so he said, why don't you use that school? So I said, do I have to pay? He said, yeah, you have to pay rent. So how much rent do you want me to pay? He said, $1 a year. I said, oh my gosh, $1 a year. Now, this is something that I learned in Singapore. You have to pay, but the amount you pay can vary a lot. So the Minister of Education was so helpful. I now have great respect for the government, because whenever there is a problem, they will help. They really will help. So they gave me this premise, this whole school at Margaret Drive, and we started the school. So we started with just the Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, all the intellectually disabled. But when I was doing the clinic at the Frida Paul's clinic, I noticed there are a lot of children who had autism. So I went to see the professor of psychiatry, child psychiatry. How many cases of autism do you see in Singapore? And he said, none. I said, oh, what do you mean none? So he said, well, it doesn't exist. Then I spoke to him, and I sort of realized that he was defined autism under the Kenner. Now, the Kenner definition of autism is much more strict and much more rigorous. You have to have zero speech. You have to be totally no socializing, and you have to have very compulsive, repetitive behaviors. So he said, there are none in Singapore. But I said, look, I have this whole clinic with lots of autistic kids. And so, he didn't believe me. So anyway, I went ahead and started. Luckily, the Ministry of Education didn't believe him either. So I was able to start a program for autism. Now, again, I know nothing about autism. That's not my training. I'm an endocrinologist. So I then went to look around. And luckily, I got a strange phone call from a German lady who had come to Singapore because her husband was invited by the Singapore government to start research in physics. And he was in the IMCB, the Institute of Molecular Cell Biology. And so she was here doing nothing. So I said, she's introduced herself and said that she had just got a PhD in autism. I said, oh, fantastic. Come and help us start our program. So she did. And so our program was started at the Margaret Drive with the help of this lady, Bernard, Dr. Bernard. And so she started it, and it started with just a small handful, and now it's grown to very, very large. And now we have 3 schools, and most of our children nowadays are on the autism spectrum. So we had to do all these things. We had to train our teachers. There were zero teachers. We had to train the teachers. We had to get all the therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, physiotherapists, all the therapists, the music therapy, which again, some people said, oh, don't bother with music therapy. It's no good. And I said, no, I believe in music. I'm a musician. I love music. So I introduced it against a lot of opposition. A lot of people say, don't waste money. So and now, of course, everyone accepts it. So a lot of things I did on instinct. I didn't have any training. I didn't know whether it was useful or not useful. I just thought, why do we deprive children of music? So I said, let's do it. And luckily it works. And now we do have a full-time professional music therapist. And there have been articles, there have been research papers published on this saying that it does work. So I learned a lot of things. I learned on the job, you know, by real experience, not by reading all the scientific papers, because some of them are may turn out not to be so accurate. So that's how we started, and it's kept going, and I'm still on the board, so I still help give a little bit of advice. I still raise money. I use my musicals to raise money for the schools.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can deny that the support landscape in Singapore for autism has really drastically improved because of your efforts. There are a couple of questions that came in the chat, and I guess they pertain more towards your hobbies and your life in general. So the first question from Charmaine would be, what would you consider your greatest joy in life to be?
Well, there's several, but I guess, well, the family is still very important to me. Having a loving wife and children, and now grandchildren. I got 3 grandchildren, 2 more on the way. So that's one area. The other area is seeing the joy of these families that I've managed to help, not only in autism and in disabilities, but also I still do general pediatrics. So we do see kids with hypothyroidism, short stature, heart murmurs, and so on. I do general pediatrics nowadays, and all these have been great joy to see how we've helped the families, and many of them come back to see me decades later. They meet me in the shopping center. They say, "Are you Dr. Lyen?" Yeah, I'm Dr. Lyen. And you are? And then they'll say, "Oh, I looked after their kids when they were babies, and now the kids are applying for medical school. And can they do a clinical attachment with me?" I said, "Yeah, sure, come." And so many of them actually did come, do a clinical attachment, did get into medical school, and some of them have even graduated, some with top, dean's list or whatever list you call them nowadays. And so I was very, very happy to be able to help some of these children I looked after when they were little babies get into medical school. It's quite a joy to be